So this is Mary Collins from Life Hacks Media on Radio X, and I have the pleasure of having our favorite vet, Dr. Akawi, back online as we are now both working from home because of the COVID-19 pandemic. How are you, Dr.
Exactly.
How are you, Dr. Akawi?
I am doing great considering what's going on, and thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure. It's so good because we had Dr. Akawi on talking about pet safety during the holidays. And I think I was making some kind of ironic jokes about, oh yeah, I'd eat my dog. And now we're in an isolation situation, with plenty of time to learn all about some of your wonderful advice like bone broth, because, it's just crazy. It's crazy. And the last time I talked to you, Dr. Akawi, you were actually in New York where your practice is. So tell me, because it looks too sunny and you look too healthy and tan to be in New York City. What's going on?
Well, two things. I have a home in Florida, and typically I travel to Florida after I finish my shift working in New York. I work like 5-6 days a month. And I happen to travel, and I'm grateful and lucky, on March 10th from New York to Sarasota, where I live. And obviously, by that time, we had like 100 cases in the United States, the beginning of March. So to go to Florida, and then the cases have been really multiplying exponentially since then. I stayed in Florida, especially that I heard even at the practice where I worked at, we did have one of the nurses showing upper respiratory signs that end up having to travel 200 miles to get tested. This is back March 10th.
Right.
You can imagine, with that hype and saying, oh, you can get tested. The CDC and the FDA, I mean, they had this very rigorous, specific instructions who should get tested at the time and who shouldn't. So that particular nurse had to travel 200 miles and having worked with 2 shifts with other nurses. Just imagine, in a clinic, now they all had to get tested, but we couldn't find out the results for 5 days.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So now looking at hindsight 2020, knowing the virus can live on fomites, which means tables and surfaces for 24 hours, can linger in the air for almost 2-3 hours.
Wow.
And an asymptomatic infected person can spread the virus to another person just by talking and exhaling. It's just looking back at that, saying, wow, this is really a serious situation.
Yeah.
And but I am grateful. I'm in Florida, and we do have politics play into the virus. Unfortunately, it depends where you are. In Florida, there's less rigid social distancing, just because the thinking, which is crazy, that it's not really that big a deal. There's a lot of misconception that people have, and I would like to clear that in this interview about comparison of the coronavirus to the flu. And is that the same? Or if it's the same, why are we really afraid of it? Because last year in the United States alone, we lost 34,000 people to the flu, died.
Wow. Okay.
And you don't hear anything about those people, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think this is what's causing a lot of clashing of personalities, right? And actual friends are like fighting almost like politics over this, because people are like, this is my livelihood. I need to get to work. I have things to do. Why should I be, made to stay home when I have a life, And then there are other people like me who read up on history and panic about 8 weeks before everyone, and start to plan, because I know in history that the last one was in 1918, and I thought, I'm probably wrong because I'm not a doctor, but I saw a lot of similarities already. The fact that it was possibly zoonic, or however you say that, and I don't know if that's correct, but it seemed to be very similar to. And then, and I haven't even watched the scare tactic movies like Pandemic or any of the other things. I just good old history book reading had got me kind of alert. And the fact that they started to cancel carnivals and festivals in Europe, that was like, uh-oh, the government knows more than they're telling us. They don't cancel billion-dollar carnivals for nothing.
Exactly.
So and then what's bothering me now as well is because, and we will get into this, right, is that you're my go-to pet person, being a trained veterinarian, and I am already uptight about people's dogs coming over to my dog, because I'm like, I don't know where your dog has been. I know where my dog has been, and I'm already like and she's an old dog. So I'm still seeing people here. They're kind of talking away from each other, right? Like they're 6 feet apart, but they're letting their dogs kiss and sniff butts and all this sort of stuff. So this is definitely what we want to cover today, Dr. Akawi, is what is COVID? What does it really mean? Why is it important to follow the rules? And that includes with our pets. What to do next. So you,
all right, let's
take it away.
COVID-19. COVID is an abbreviation for discovered. COVID discovered 19 in 2019. And the reference for the year is important because really this same virus, or a version of it, mutated from the SARS in 2002. That was a coronavirus too. If you remember, in 2002, actually, I was visiting China at the time. It's called SARS. It's an abbreviation for severe acute respiratory distress syndrome, SARS. And the difference between that virus and this virus is vast. For example, let me give you an example. That virus affected 8,000 people in total, okay? And it killed 800 people. So that's about 10% fatality. So it was really high in fatality. However, it was low in low in the spread of the virus. So that really spread from a bat, we know a bat, to a wild cat called civet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, civet. And again, it was in the Wuhan area because people eat civets there, or wild animals and things like this. So the reservoir for the virus is the bat. So bat, the virus hopped from a bat to a civet, and then it mutated and was able to cross and infect humans. Typically, in the normal coronavirus infection that people have before all this epidemic, it always causes rhinitis, upper respiratory tract infection. You don't even know that you have it, and it's gone. But this one mutated inside the civet to a point where it was affecting our respiratory system in more profound way. So that was in 2002, and of course we didn't learn from it because humans are not really intelligent sometimes.
We never heard about it in the news, though. Like in Europe and America, there was really not, like, apparently quite a few Americans caught it. I just found out from a friend, an English friend actually, who lives in Switzerland, that her daughter had swine flu.
Yeah, as you look at the 8,000 cases globally, I mean, nobody didn't hear about that, and it killed like 800 people. We only, we worry when we have a higher, what we call R naught. I don't know if you're familiar with the terminology in epidemiology. They call that the R naught ratio, which means this particular virus have an R naught of 3.2 actually. Maybe a little bit higher, we don't know exactly, but it's just to give you an example. The regular flu has R naught of 1, okay? So when you have R naught of 3, that means each infected person give the virus to 3 other people. And the 3 people give it to three other people, each person. So that's 9. The 9 become 27. The 27 become 84, and so forth and so on. So you can imagine the spread compared to the flu has an R naught of almost 1, which means you get in with somebody, they give him the flu, they go home, they give it to somebody else, 1 on 1. So the curve is almost flat already with the flu versus with the corona. It's exponential because after a few days, you're going to have hundreds and thousands of people that are spreading the virus to other individuals. So this happened in 2002, and we forgot about it. And then 2012, another bat hopped the virus into a camel, this time in Abu Dhabi and in the Gulf area, and it caused what we call MERS, Middle Eastern respiratory, the respiratory syndrome. And again, we only had 2,500 cases globally, but it killed 850 people. So that virus had 34% fatality rate. Can you imagine?
So it's climbing.
So it's mutating differently, and the presentation was different in 2012, and yet we forgot about it. We didn't. Hindsight 2020. Why would you want to make vaccine if only 2,500 people got affected by it?
Right, and then 2016 there was another outbreak, right?
Well, the biggest one is 2019, really, and this. The virus hopped from a bat again into a pangolin. Pangolin, you know what a pangolin is?
No.
The pangolin is almost like armadillo, but it has scales on the outside of the body. These scales have healing properties to a lot of people in the world. So there is a hidden black market for it. And this is a point we should really be cognizant of. Wildlife black market. And this is really what caused it. It was in Wuhan. They were catching those pangolins and selling them to other people that are interested in the scales of the pangolin, not knowing that another coronavirus hopped into the pangolin and was able to mutate and infect people.
Dr. Akawi, where in case people think that we're just coming up, with this off the top of our heads, where is a good source? Because this is what causes a lot of confusion, is people are getting stuff that from different sources, and some people won't listen to it if it comes from Fox News, and some people won't listen to it if it comes from CNN. Where is PubMed, or where is the best place to find the actual like information that says what you have?
I mean, for the MDs, PubMed would be excellent. For veterinarians, I always hop on the avma.org, and it has, if you want the same information but more specific to animals, then that would be a good site. USDA.org is a good site. The CDC is an excellent site. I mean, they filter all the information.
Right.
Sometimes I suspect there is a little bit of political guidance there.
Yeah.
I don't want organization. I want the raw information.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm telling people. I'm like, if you don't trust the World Health Organization, because they are kind of backpedaling now, and you don't trust certain sites, then definitely, even if you don't understand everything that's in the vet specific files or the PubMed specific files, you can kind of line them up and put them together and say, okay, well, look, there's this and there's this. And the other thing is, of course, you're bringing to attention to people the whole point of live markets. Yes, China is a different culture. It's an ancient culture. However, I hope this also brings a lot of attention to people that we need to consider where we
do business with humane. This is like one arm in 4 or 5 other arms that we really neglect to mention. This is really related to climate change. In encroaching on the wildlife habitat and deforestation. You know, when you do deforestation and you take their habitat, they're going to get closer to where we live. You know, the temperature and all that. This is all interrelated. I mean, you don't see it immediately, but I think by really, I'm glad we're having this conversation, by simplifying the way to explain to people about the virus and what happens. I think that's very beneficial because, you know, they're not going to take it for granted anymore. Let me illuminate a little bit more, because we're hearing about protective equipment and ventilators. Let me illuminate a little bit more in more simple words why this is important and why the virus does that. And it mutated to this version of almost like a sci-fi movie. But let me relate it in more scientific way where people understand what happens. Because we talked about the flu. The flu invades the upper respiratory tract cells, and you know, it stays in the upper airways mostly, unless you get complication and you get pneumonia. But
Dr. Akawi, actually, I was going to say, because we'll break it into pieces. So the first part we were talking about was based on what is, first of all, people need to understand is the death rate compared to the spread rate compared COVID to the flu, which is what we've covered. So that's definitely like our first hacks. People, do your research, look at PubMed, look at the different vet site, you know, specific vet publications to see when this started. And if you look back, it started quite a while ago with the same kind of transmission through an animal, just like the flu of 1918. So first of all, that's what we want you to do. Your top life hacks right now is find the research yourself. Do not depend on social media or what I say, news sites that are very much dictated to.
Exactly.
The information is there. So thank you, Dr. Akawi. That's part one.
Well, let me just finish the third one based on statistics today, because this thing is changing every day. We have 1.37, 1,372 and 49 infection globally. We have roughly about 76,200 fatalities globally. If you divide the 76 over the 1.372 million, then multiply it by 100, you get the fatality rate. And if you do that, that's close to between 4.5%. I just want to explain that, because remember we said with the MERS, it was 34%, and with the SARS, it was 10%. So luckily, this number will even get smaller because there's a lot of infected and asymptomatic people out there, and the more infected people that are not showing signs, and you know, that will decrease the fatality rate, obviously.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So I mean, that's just saying to people, you know, that unless the strain changes again, because that's what seems to be happening as well. There's like 8 strains of this going out right now, isn't there?
Well, we have another important. We have 2 strains so far we discovered: the L form and the S form.
Right.
The S form is the one that really came out of Wuhan into Europe and the US too. The L form is 70% of the cases we are seeing now, which is a little bit of a different form. I don't want to say mutated because it takes a little bit longer, but it's a different, it's evolving as we speak, the virus that is. And I want to also just kind of touch on something called the RI, the serious, or the SI, the serious spreading or reproductive spreading of the virus. That's actually a blessing, because if you compare that to like how far or how long it will take before one positive person meet another person that is not positive, that the infection spread. There's a rate that's called the serious interval or reproductive interval. And in this particular virus, it's almost like between 5 and 7, 7.2, 7 days. You know, you compare that to the flu virus, which is 2.2 days. Just think about it. If this was like the flu in the serious interval, if we infected everybody after 2 days of being exposed to somebody else, you can imagine that curve?
Yeah.
That thing is so massive and so quick, it will kill people right and left. So we're lucky that we have this time for the medical field to relax a little bit and take care of our people. So that's a little bit of a glimpse of positive line in this.
But that's if people stay home.
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, even if they don't, I'm saying the spread is take longer than it would with the flu. Of course, if they stay home, not only this is beneficial, but the curve would be flatter.
Okay.
Because,
so that's
because you're not exposed, infected 3.2 people every time you go outside.
Yes. Okay. So that's part one, and where you guys need to understand that there are statistics. They're real statistics, and they really show us that, you know, we understand you're under stress. We understand that you need to go to work, and that economically we're all in for a tough ride. But the research is there, and this is only of what we know so far, and it's serious. It's serious.
It is serious. I want to just describe a little bit what the virus does after it gets inside the body, because a lot of people, like you said, think, well, you know, it's like the flu.
Well, we're going to do that in part 2. So thank you so much, Dr. Akawi.
Yes.
So just hold on. So I'm just going to pause because I've got